Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. This is part 2 of the Moebius Battlestar Galactica Colonial Raptor scale 1 to 32. In part 1 I dealt with making up the victual fins and the engines for the Raptor. In this part I will be dealing with the pilots and the interior of the ship. So let's jump into the build. First of all then, just assembling the two figures that come with the kit. There's a co-pilot and pilot. Both figures are exactly the same. And the only parts you have to assemble here are the arms and the helmet. So I'm just assembling the arms at the moment. The helmet's going to be painted before I put it on. It just makes it easier to be painted. While I'm waiting for the figures to set, I'll move on to the chairs. And these chairs are being painted in Revel Aquacolor 89 beige. The instructions are calling for a grey colour, but some of the photos I've looked at, it has a sort of lighter tint than grey, so that's why I decided to paint it in beige. For the cushion and headrest, it's Revel Aquacolor 06 Tar Black, and I'm using Revel Aquacolor 07 Black Gloss, and this is for the framework at the back of the seat. Onto the figure, and I'm using Revel Aquacolor 66 Olive Grey, and this colour is for the main body, so I'm putting this down first of all as the base colour. Moving on to the helmet, I'm using Revel Aquacolor 90 Silver, and again, like the uniform, this is a base colour. There's only certain points on the helmet that's going to be the actual silver colour. Now I'm using Tamiya's X19 Smoke. Now this is for the visor, and what this colour does is it goes over your bottom colour and it leaves like a transparent filament which has been tainted, so it looks like a bit of tainted glass. This is very good for windscreens when you have to have a bit of a taint in your windscreen, or a canopy where again you need a little bit of taint. This smoke colour achieves that. Now I'm using Revel Aquacolor 94 Gold, and this is going to be the overall colour for the helmet. I should point out on this in this colour I have thinned it down greatly to the point of it would be okay to use to airbrush. So it's like a texture of semi-skimmed milk. It's got that sort of see-through look in it. I prefer the gold to go like that because I just want a tint of the gold with the silver shining through. The camera can barely pick it up there, unfortunately, but the photographs will show it how it actually looks. Now I'm using Revel Aquacolor 381 Brown Silk, and this is for the waistcoat. It's like a vest on the pilot and co-pilot. I should add actually these Revel Aquacolor paints, the brown can be a little bit thick when you buy a new pot, so it may need to be thinned down, just like the blacks will have to be thinned down, and some of the other darker colours. Revel Aquacolor 35 Flesh, I'm using just a little bit of this for the hands, and for the belt and boots it's Revel Aquacolor 06 Tar Black. It's time for the helmet to go on. Now I've still got this partially attached to the sprue, just for ease putting the actual helmet on, and it should just push in very easily onto the location point. There's two little decals that go on the side of the pilot and co-pilot's arm. They're just two little Galactica patch badges, and that's the figures made up, apart from some little touch-ups of paintwork. The cockpit walls for the interior are getting painted in Revel Aquacolor 43 Medium Grey, and this is going to be for the entire base coat for the interior. There's various handles and switches, and I'm just laying down a base coat of Revel Aquacolor 90 Silver and some pipework which is Revel Aquacolor 77 Dust Grey. I will fast forward this part and putting on the decals. There's quite a few decals to put on here for the interior of the Raptor. There's various windows and control instruments that you have to place on. I just approached it in a simple manner. Started with the lowest number and worked my way through, and kept the parts into zones as well, so I wasn't going back over areas where I was putting on the decals. Decals did seem a little bit thick to me, how I was putting them on. I used the normal decal solution for this. I didn't use any decal sol or set, maybe I should have done, because of the thickness of the decals. But I did persevere with it, and I got through them. So that's the last of the decals going on now for the different compartments. They went on okay, as I said, they were a bit thick, but I could live with that. Now that the decals are on, I can get to painting the little bits and pieces that go in. So first of all, I'm painting the joysticks, and that's Tamiya's X10 gunmetal, and this will be for the grip and for the base. For the stem, I'm using Revol Aquacolor 90 Silver. Those are the two main colours for the joysticks and all the other little parts that you put on inside the interior. There's not actually that many to place on. It's on to Revol Aquacolor 89 Beige, and this is for the, I think it's navigating seat, whatever, that goes in the rear part of the interior. 06 Tar Black Revol Aquacolor is for the seat, so it's just like the other two chairs that I did. Revol Aquacolor 43 Medium Grey, this is for the base of the extra chair that's going in, and it's back to Tamiya's X10 Gunmetal for the stem of the base of the chair. Now it comes to painting in the details of the interior. So I'm starting off with Revol Aquacolor 90 Silver, and this is predominantly used as a background colour, and just painting in the raised platforms with that before I go into different colours. I'm using Tamiya's Weathering Master E, and I'm using the green component here just to highlight some of the details on the control panel. Now I'm switching over to Weathering Master C and using the gunmetal compartment, all in conjunction to create light and shadow and highlighting all these little areas. Switching back to Tamiya's X10 Gunmetal, this is highlighting other background plates for the instrument panels. There's another seat to paint, so it's 89 Beige Revol Aquacolor, and it's a drop down seat. It's just moulded onto the wall of the unit here. Now it comes down to the switches and dials. First of all, I'm using Tamiya's X24 Clear Yellow. Now, the reason why I'm using the clear yellow on switches and dials, if you see a lot of pictures, they're sort of whitish and a glowy whitish, yet the clear yellow gives off that feeling of light coming through the dials, and all you need is little dots. And Tamiya's X25 Clear Green is the next colour for the same purpose of the dials and switches. And moving on to Tamiya's X27 Clear Red. Carrying on the same process with X26 Clear Orange, and lastly X23 Clear Blue. So all these clear paints act really well for switches and dials. They give off a transparency look, which obviously with the name Clear suggests. The last thing to do before assembly is use Tamiya's Weathering Master C and the gunmetal component to just highlight the grates on this vent here. So it's now finally time to put the components together. So I'm starting off with the two little monitors that go on the forward control panel. They just fit in a little recess point right on the edge. They are trimmed in such a way that they go in at an angle, and the front section of the control panel gets fitted into the little vent that I just used the Weathering Master on, and that goes into a V shape. You can assemble this actually on the unit itself, but I decided it would just be a little bit easier to put it together like that. And the seat assembly, it's just the base unit going onto the actual seat. Again, there's a slight angle to these location points, so make sure that you get it the right way around, because it'll look strange if it doesn't point the proper way on the control panel. Onto the base plate here, and the colours that I'm using is a mixture that I made up myself. It's a very simple mixture. It's chrome silver 25% and brown 75%. Now this mixture also is my go-to colour for tank tracks. It just gives that used metal steel sort of look. Just play around with it if you decide to do it. Go with whatever you feel is right, of course. Now it's back to the assembly. So the first control stick is going in. This is the little assembly part that goes on to the main control panel inside the back of the interior. It was a simple case of fitting it on. The little slot that they make for the location points for this is a bit tight. You can't really just push it on and marry it up into the slot. You have to put it on at an angle to push in the other part. So as you can see there, I'm putting on just putting it in at an angle at one point, then slotting in the rest of it. The side block fits in rather easily. There's two little location points on the end. It just slips in. Next to the two seats, there's a little moulded part underneath the seat that just fits into the groove on the base, and then the co-pilot and pilot go on. Don't worry, these do fit in before you put the instrument panel on. I did check beforehand. There's plenty of room. Next to the control panel, that just sits on the edge of the unit here, and the central display unit, there's a little recess point that it clips into, so it's all nice and lined up. Next is the chair. I did have to make this little recess hole a little bit larger to fit the unit. I suggest putting this unit in first before you put the sidewall in. It just makes it a little bit easier. And now for the first sidewall. These fitted in extremely well. There's a little recess points on it. Just be careful that your pilots are dry. Mine weren't quite dry and I had to reset one while I was doing this. And then the opposite wall going, basically like the first one, it just slots in. Next to go on is the rail compartment. As you can see, the two recess points are ready to marry up. It fitted in alright. You may have to hold it for a couple of minutes for it to marry up on the sidewall here. Just push it together a little bit. I decided to do some seat belts. So all this is a couple of little bits of masking tape. Then I'm painting them in Rebel Upper Colour 86 olive brown. I found a picture of a Raptor, and inside the cockpit there was some cargo nets. I wasn't going to bother with this, but I thought, well, since I've done seat belts, I may as well have a go at making some cargo nets. So this is a wider piece of masking tape here. So I took a strip of it, first of all, then took another strip and laid it down so both tacky sides are facing each other. So the outer sides are non-tacky. I then took my ruler and used a new knife, a new blade in my knife, and just cut out thin strips as I go along. Now, because I've doubled them up, the masking tape, you may need a little bit more pressure to do this, to cut it, depending on your blade really. But if you're doing this, try and get them as thin as possible. I actually cut these a little bit too thick, and I had to go over and try and make them thinner. Then it was a simple case of just lifting up the strips and peeling the strips away from the main unit, and it was just a case of measuring the width of the cargo net, and the cargo net's going behind the two front seats. And so I'm just measuring the length and cutting off 4 units of this. And it was the same with the height. You don't have to be exact here if you're deciding to do this. So as I said, I cut them a little bit too wide, too thick. So I'm just just trimming them to a better size. And once they were all trimmed down to my liking, I use a tiny little spot of super glue, and I'm just putting one piece for the width, the top part, and one longer piece for the side, and just gluing it on. So I do this until I make a rectangular shape. And the next process was to carry on just making a lot of shape as I go along. So putting the horizontal lines in first, and then putting in the verticals. Each little connecting part has a tiny spot of glue, a little bit of super glue to hold it all into position. And once all that was done, it was just a matter of cutting off the excess until I'm left with a sort of lattice grid work here. Don't worry if it's not an exact rectangle like this, it's all over the place really. In fact, it's probably better that way because it gives a feeling of movement. Next to paint them, and it's Rebel Aquacolor 48C green, and I'm just slapping the paint on here actually. I'm not any particular care putting it on. I want a rough look for this. And while the paint's drying, I'm moving back onto the seat belts. So similar with the cargo net, I'm just cutting out a thin straight and I'm making up a simple harness here. So initially putting two parts in a V shape and then one cross section at the bottom of the V and the last strip at the bottom of the V pointing downwards. It's a simple solution in design, but once it goes on, I think it's quite effective. So it's back to the cargo net, and I need a tension bar to hold on to the cargo net. So I'm just using a cocktail stick here. I measured it and just cutting off the ends and securing it with a little bit of super glue. So I'm just placing the cargo net onto the bar, and once that's done, I'll just check for fit before moving back to the seat belt. I use Rebel Aquacolor 90 Silver just as a little dots where the joinings meet for the seat belt, so it looks like a buckle. Now place them in. The long thin bit at the bottom goes in between the legs first of all. I secured that with a little bit of super glue. I then folded over the shoulder straps, again securing it with a little bit of super glue. It's helpful if you put the super glue on before you fold it over, so it will set fairly immediately. If you do have any bits that are left over, which you want because you want to make sure you have the right left, just trim them off with your knife and then just carry on the same process all the way around the 5 points of the belt until you're happy with the positioning. So it's back to the cargo net, so I'm just placing a little bit of super glue where the contact points will be, and then it's just a matter of placing the cargo net in, making sure that the tension bar is on the contact points that I made with the super glue. Well, this is a good place to end the video. Ran slightly longer than I wanted it to, but I thought it was good to get the interior all done in one video. If you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the other videos on my channel for this build and indeed any other builds. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, leave any comments. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.